Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is going to be the first YouTube video for the Different Breed channel. Thank you for being here. If you don't know who I am, I'm Coach Taryn. I'm founder of Different Breed. We provide training, nutrition, and lifestyle coaching for our clients who are busy men and women who want to rediscover their inner athlete and live their life with a body that is full of energy and capable of taking on any challenge life throws at them. Today, we're going to be breaking down the way I program. I get so many questions about how I fit all sorts of different goals into a training plan, especially when people have diverse goals. And I thought, what better way to tell you than just to show you? I love programming on a whiteboard. It's actually how I program most of my clients. So let's get into it. We're going to use an imaginary client called John. And John, let's just put him up here. We are going to assume, because for the sake of this video, we need to assume there's not too many crazy variables, so this doesn't get super long. John is going to be basically fully capable of all the goals he has, and he doesn't have any injuries. So let's just keep that in mind. Now, John wants to get, here are his goals. And this is how I always go about writing a training plan, is I first write down what we want to do. So we're going to go muscle up, handstand, back lever, L-sit, deadlift, squat, and athletic. So John's goals are extremely varied. He wants to get his muscle up, he wants to get his handstand, his back lever, his L-sit. He wants to improve his deadlift, improve his squat, and get more athletic. And we are going to define that with more power and better hops. So he wants more power and to be better at jumping. Now, this can seem pretty discordant, but we can kind of start putting stuff together in sections. So this is Cali strength. Here we've got upper power, but interestingly enough, with this muscle up, it's also a Cali skill, and we can actually bunch this handstand and this muscle up together into, and I've drawn myself a difficult box here, so I'm going to put it over here. We'll get these guys into Cali skill. So whilst the muscle up is this upper power, it's actually a Cali skill. These pair together, they're a similar thing. And then we've got our lower body strength. So we can see deadlift, squat, which you could call powerlifting or anything like that, but fundamentally is lower strength. And now we have immediately simplified his goals down into a way we can put into a program. From here, what I'm going to do is, obviously this is an imaginary client, so from my consultation I would know how many days a week John has to train, and we're going to say he's got 4 days a week of 90 minutes. So what we do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, and we draw this out. Now from here, we're not just going to start filling stuff in. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to split out these days. So 4-day programs are really nice because they're symmetric. And generally, you're going to create symmetry across that program just because it makes things easy. So what I can think about here, which makes sense, is Cali skill, which includes an upper power movement, interestingly enough. So what I'm going to pair that with is our athletic stuff here. Athletic. So this pairs pretty well. Then what I'm going to add in at the bottom is just some conditioning, because conditioning is good and healthy for everyone. And it fits quite well there because it allows us to get some volume in, because we don't have any particular volume goals, but it allows us to get some quick volume in and some good conditioning in. So we'll think about doing a Metcon or something in this place. We also might do a little bit of rotation, a couple accessories. So we know we can put in some accessories here. Now we're going to mirror that on day 3, Cali skill, and we'll do some slightly different variations of what that workout can look like. We will do some athletic work. We'll do some accessories, because why not? And we're going to put in conditioning. And we're just putting this in because I know it's not one of the main goals, but you need a heart that works. You need to be able to do work capacity to be an athlete. And if you want to get more athletic, you need to have an engine. It just doesn't really matter what type of athlete you need to be. You have to have an engine. So we're going to have that in there. That leaves us with our Cali strength here, Cali strength here, and it leaves us with lower strength and lower strength. Then people always ask me in terms, that is horrific, let me rewrite that, sorry guys. This is going to be horrific, you may not be able to read this, but I will highlight on the screen what this actually looks like. Lower strength, okay. Now this is what our plan is going to look like. We draw another line under this, and then we're going to start filling this in. So there's a really nice rule of thumb I actually learned on one of the first PT courses I ever did, which is just all the types of movement you need to do. So we need to get core in here. And the core has 3 functions. It rotates. I'm going to do this in a different color, actually. I always write this up because it's just a good way to make sure you've hit all the buttons. So we're going to say core. You have to rotate. So I'm going to call that rot. We have to compress, comp, and we have to flex. And we can think about the flexion, forward, backward, side to side. We just want to hit all of these. Then we want to hit a knee dominant lower. So I'm going to put knee. That's not how you spell knee. Knee low. And we're going to do 1 and 2. So single leg, double leg, hip lower, 1 and 2. Then we're going to have pushing, pulling, and we need to do this vertically and horizontally for both. And of course, you could think about doing a unilateral and a bilateral movement for the pushing and pulling as well, similar to this, but I find generally you end up doing one of them just through the nature of training, so I don't tend to write it down. But these are just these kind of like sanity checks we're going to use on this for, does this program actually make sense for someone who not only wants these goals, but actually wants to be a healthy, functional human being? And, you know, for example, if we just followed these goals, we may not do any conditioning, and that's not a functional, healthy human being. Now we can start breaking this down. I'm going to do this next one in green. Okay, so day 1, Cali skill, we are going to do handstand work. So we'll do a handstand warm-up. You're going to put HWU, handstand warm-up. We'll then do some handstand work, so HSW, just so you can tell the difference. Then we will move into our Cali skill. So we've got a muscle up, that's upper power. On this day, we're going to just do banded muscle ups because he doesn't have muscle up yet. It's a goal he wants to learn. But not only are we going to put banded muscle ups, we know that maybe we could put in some more vertical pulling because it will be beneficial. We can tick this off. So what we're going to do within our accessories is do a pause chin up. And because we're athletic, we want to be able to rotate. We want to be able to move pretty well. So what I'm going to pair this with is some pogo hops. And then we're getting some jump training in. We could then put in there a hip shift swing, which will help our athleticism as well because we're now rotating through the core. And we can pair that with maybe a horizontal push for an accessory. So we could think about doing some deficit push-ups. And these are supersets. And then at the bottom, we're just going to put conditioning. I'm not going to write out a Metcon for you guys now, but just think you could do an assault bike, you could do a WOD, you could do anything like that. Now, what I like to do once I've written that is come over to this mirror. So we know we're going to do some more handstand warm-up. And generally, I would do a different handstand warm-up. So maybe I've done some lying alignment drills there and some shoulder work. Maybe I'll do some specific handstand warm-up stuff here against a wall or something. And then we will do some handstand work. And again, generally, I will make this a little bit different. So maybe this is forward-facing wall work. Maybe this is box work. Just something to keep it interesting. And then we know we want to hit our other skill. But we've already done banded muscle-ups this week. We could take 2 approaches to this. We could work more banded muscle-ups, or we could work high pulls. Now, we've done another bit of vertical pulling here. So we know we're training our vertical pulling strength and power because we're doing muscle-ups. So it makes sense to me reasonably that we could put in another banded muscle-up day. But perhaps instead of this being maybe lower reps where we're actually trying to get the movement, we do some higher reps where we're exposing them to the movement. It's less intense. And now we can pair this with a different plyometric. And maybe this time we're going to do some lateral single leg work. Just working lateral jumps, make us more athletic. And because we're nicely warmed up from this lateral single leg work, we could go into another jumping movement, but perhaps we go for something a little bit more intense. So we go for repeated single leg bounds. So we've warmed up that single leg work. Now we're looking for single leg jumping, getting more athletic, getting more powerful off of this, because this is a lot harder, and building into that. Of course, that takes a bit more rest, but that's absolutely fine because we can pair this with an accessory that makes sense. Now we're trying to get better at handstanding. We haven't done much vertical pushing, so we can think about doing a straddle kettlebell Z press here. And now suddenly you can see this is starting to mirror. We've got our handstand work. Now the muscle up here, because we're going to be maybe going heavier, is on its own. But over here, it makes sense because we're going to be going lighter, higher rep, that we've paired it. Makes sense in a superset. You need less rest. We've got a second superset here. And then obviously that means the workout's going to be a bit shorter. So our conditioning here can be longer. We know this is going to be shorter. This is going to be more of like a chipper WOD, perhaps a rounds per time, something like that. And as we've done this, we now know this is going to be higher rep and this is going to be lower. So as you can see, the program starts filling in itself as we create these mirrorings across the board because we can see it. So now we're going to get into day 2 and day 4. So these are our Cali strength, lower strength days. So we're going to start off with the major thing of each Cali day. So we're going to say back lever A here. So in the same way we've got these A and B on the muscle up days, we're going to have A and B days for the strength thing. So back lever A, I'm just going to put BL on this one B. So we've got back lever A, back lever B, which means we're also going to have L sit A and L sit B. We don't necessarily need to put A or B in front of each other in the workout. We're going to do through what makes sense. So on these lower strength days, this is where we're going to squat and we're going to deadlift. Now, it doesn't really matter which way round we do that, but we're probably going to go for an A and B as well because they're a priority, right? We need to do them a lot. So let's just say for the sake of it, this one is going to be squat A, deadlift B. This is going to be deadlift A, squat B. B. Right, now, these are kind of hard to fit together because the back lever is quite hard, L-sit's quite hard, deadlift's hard. So we're going to look at having a bit of a more usually a range program here, maybe a little bit less supersets, not looking to do these WODs and stuff. So we're going to start this workout with our deadlift, deadlift A, which is going to be heavy, heavier day, hence A. We are then going to do our squat B, and this is just going to be an accessory for the squat. And so I'm going to pick Kang squat. Why not? It's not super heavy. It's going to start warming up the hamstrings, and this is going to come into what we are doing later. So the hamstrings are going to be nicely warmed up and toasted through this Kang squat, and it's still going to work. Our squat mechanics is going to be useful for the squat. Now, what we can do off the back of this is we're going to go into our back lever A. It's kind of hard. Think 5 to 8 seconds, something like that. We're going to superset this with some hip flexor work to prime the hip flexors for the L-sit. So now we've toasted the hamstring, got them mobile, we've worked some hip flexors, then we're going to go into our L-sit here. And this is a pretty solid program. This isn't going to take the full time he's got in the gym. So then what I can do is reflect on here. I'm like, well, we've got vertical pushing. We've got a little bit of horizontal pushing, but we haven't got too much. We've got some vertical pulling on 2 days, so that's all right, but we haven't got much horizontal pulling. And we haven't got much hip and knee single or unilateral stuff. So what we would say is because we've got the jumping, we do have an element of these. So it's not super important, but we're going to put some in. So I might superset this L-sit with just a single leg RDL, something that doesn't interfere. And then because we haven't got much horizontal pulling, we might just finish this day with some seated row, something simple like that that makes sense. But just for the sake of it, so we can hit a single arm variation, we're going to do this single arm. And then that's that day written out. Then we come over here and we do a similar thing. So we're going to start off with our squat A. Squat A is going to be our heavy squat. Then we can get in our deadlift B, which I'm going to say are paused. So they're a little bit more technical, a little bit less heavy. That's messy, but there we go. You can see it. So that's out of the way. And now we need to figure out what we're doing for our L-sit. Now, the L-sit work we did last time has come later on in the workout. So the chances of you holding a really strong L-sit are a little bit lower, but we're going to expose you to the movement twice in the week. So that's fine. So we're going to be looking for, band assisted L-sit work here, which is going to make it easier. And we're going to be looking for harder L-sit work here. So what we might do for this is just demand you to do it with a lighter band, less hold time. We might get you to do it unassisted and just be looking for that maximal hold. There's all number of things you could do here. We may even be doing it weighted, just something that makes it harder. So I'm going to put harder here. And what we're going to do in this case is rather than supersetting it, we're just going to leave it on its own because it is a lot harder. Now this L-sit work is going to warm us up very well to go into a skin the cat, which makes sense as an accessory for back lever because we spin round. So we're going to say skin the cat. Now, because we want to superset this, again, we're going to have a look up here. Okay, we've got some vertical pushing. That's, we've got single and double arm because of the handstands and the straddle KB press. We've got some horizontal pushing. We've got some vertical pushing, but we don't have too much horizontal pushing here. So what we could put in here is a pseudo planche push-up, which is a pretty solid pushing movement to put in there, especially for somebody who wants Cali. So if he wants to get a planche or something like that later down the line, we have that option to go into. And obviously this is now long, not super long. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we could think about maybe putting another superset in on the end there. And what I would say is we don't have too much for arms. So I'm just going to chuck in some bicep curls and banded tiger bend push up for them to do, which will just provide a bit of arm stimulus and it's going to be useful for all these skills. So what you can see, guys, is how we turn these goals into a functional program that makes sense. So to just run you down what we do, we take the goals, we group them. We then take those groups and put them into the days of the week that we have available. From that grouping, we then start inserting the skills we have to do. We then start inserting things like accessories, conditioning, things you need to do for just being a healthy human and fit them around the rest of the goals to make it a functional program. Hopefully that gave you a bit of an insight into the way I program, the way I do it. A little bit chaotic, but honestly, training is much more of an art than a science. You kind of want it to look a bit crazy because it should be. I look at that day and I think, well, that just fits. That makes sense. There aren't hard and fast rules about the exercises I've selected, as you can see. We're looking at the principles of what we're trying to achieve. And by taking this 4-day approach, we get symmetric things and it fills itself in for us using logical programming.